Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Gone are the days of wrestling with our favorite LJN wrestling figures, trying to convince them to stand up. What's a guy to do? I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get on Etsy and look up 4 Left 3D Creations and get yourself these amazing custom LJN figure stands. There is a custom stand available for every single one of your LJN wrestling superstar figures. Make your display shine by grabbing these custom LJN stands from 4 Left 3D Creations today.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jason up New Age Revolution Cave. Wrestling with the past, as I always do. I grapple with the past. I wrestle with the past. I yearn and I pine for the past. But that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about wrestling with the past. We're going to do a long absent wrestling with the past. I must confess, I have watched a few more shows than I am ready to review. I've watched the show that I'm going to review, and then I've watched 3 more. Not yet to WrestleMania. We're still in the first week of March. Calm down. But I'm moving ahead. That's the conflict that I'm at with wrestling with the past. I want to watch my stuff, but then I don't want to watch it because I've got to take photos of it, and I've got to write about it, and I've got to talk to you guys about it. So I go ahead and watch some stuff and then go back and review it. So this is what we're going to do. We're reviewing WrestleMania. They're starting, they as I've said before, they have said the words WrestleMania, and they have run down some of the card. I don't think we ever get to the point where they run down all the matches and tell us that King Kong Bundy's fighting SD Jones, because King Kong Bundy hasn't even showed up in the WWF yet. As of March 1st, there is no King Kong Bundy yet. So I don't think we get the whole card rundown. I'm just so used to the hype for WrestleManias going forward with the WrestleMania report, where, you know, Mean Gene runs down the card and adds like 3 or 4 new matches a week. I lived for that moment as a kid, you know, going week to week and seeing who's going to be on the card. They don't do that for WrestleMania 1, so it's kind of weird to see that not happening. But we kick off March. We kick off March with a TNT episode, Tuesday Night Titans, of course, on Friday nights, and down to an hour now instead of 2. From March 1st, 1985. I don't know why the children are jumping upstairs. It is literally 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. I don't know why they would be jumping. They're not playing video games. They're supposed to be doing school. And I don't know why they're jumping. TNT, brought to you by Lee 501 Jeans, I believe. Or is it Wrangler? I don't know. It's brought to you by Jeans. Jeans are sponsoring the show. Of course, we have Vince McMahon and Lord Alfred at their posts, as usual, on the set, on the talk show set. At one point in life, I said that TNT was my favorite show. And as I'm watching through the syndicated show, not the house shows are separate. As I'm watching through, my interests are shifting. TNT is great, and it's going to get even greater when the LJNs start making an appearance. But there's nothing better than Saturday Morning Championship Wrestling, the A show, if you will, Bruno and Vince. There's nothing better than that. And I think it's because that's all fresh stuff. I am having a little bit of trouble keeping my attention on the recap shows. And TNT is a recap show with some fun interviews. You know, TNT is a separate entity. You get the fun interviews, but the matches that they show have already been showed. All-Star Wrestling from Canada is tough to watch because of Jack Reynolds. Primetime so far has been total recap of matches that happened a year ago. And All American Wrestling on USA is recap. You know, it's just Mean Gene in the World Wrestling Federation studios or control center. I just rambled. Let's get to TNT. March 1st, 1985. Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov are the guests. There is no mention of WrestleMania yet on TNT. There is only mention of WrestleMania on Championship Wrestling and All-Star Wrestling and All-American. Sheik and Volkov with Freddie Blassie come out to the set carrying an authentic Persian rug that they likely bought at Big Lots for $49.99. And they bring out the Persian rug, and they have decided that they don't want to sit on the boring couches. No, indeed, they move the coffee table and they set the rug down, and they want to have a traditional Iranian Persian sit down, I guess. I don't know. So they do. Alfred and Vince begrudgingly agree, and so they spread out the rug, and now they're sitting, and the Iron Sheik is sitting, and Nikolai Volkov, everybody's sitting. And they, of course, just start talking about the U.S. Express. And even though WrestleMania has been mentioned, and even though the U.S. Express versus Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik have been mentioned, Vince says, I'm sure sometime in the future you will be challenging for the World Tag Team titles. They don't mention WrestleMania at this point on TNT. And we've got some, whatever, we've got your typical blah, 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 back and forth, Freddie Blassie. Nikolai Volkov is dressed in a big, he's got the Russian hat, like the warm hat. And he's got like what appears to just be this thick wool jacket. So Vince just rips out the best line of the week. He says, Nikolai, I see you're wearing your Russian summer outfit or Russian summer coat. And nobody followed up on that. Nobody said anything. And I just started chuckling because I thought that was a great line. I thought that was hilarious that he's, Nikolai's wearing his Russian summer coat, which is a big, bear skin coat or whatever. It was funny. It's funny. As with traditional TNT, format, we go to Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov versus Rick McGraw and SD Jones from a TV match. This is a championship wrestling match. Good match. I mean, good as can be for 3 minutes. McGraw, as you can see here, takes the camel clutch loss. I take that back. It was not from Championship Wrestling. It was from the Canadian All-Star Wrestling. And it was a little older because we've got Angelo Mosca still on commentary. So Jesse Ventura so this is like December 84. And Iron Sheik is jawing at Mosca the whole time. And after the camel clutch, Mosca says, "That's it, I've had enough." And he gets in the ring and he, punches the Iron Sheik, and they roll out of the ring, and Sheik and Volkov take off, and Angelo Mosca suddenly becomes the Hulk Hogan. He's posing and he's hugging McGraw and SD Jones. I just hate Angelo Mosca so much. I hate it. And he takes off his... See, this is just me. This is just me venting. He takes off his tuxedo jacket, and the red cummerbund is up around his breastises. It's very high because he's just so disheveled and so sloppy. I hate Angelo Mosca. We come back, and Sheik and Volkov are still on the set, still on the carpet. And Nikolai Volkov demonstrates how to make Russian apple juice. And Russian apple juice is, he crushes an apple in his hand. And everybody's blown away that Nikolai Volkov crushed an apple in his hand. And then we go to commercial break. Vince announces that we have a very special guest coming up. Miss Rita Marie is the next guest on TNT. We come back and she is introduced, and she is, look, people can act any way they want. We're not here to judge people's behaviors. We're not here to accuse anybody of being a certain way. But Vince and Rita Marie are both zoned into each other pretty good. And Rita Marie is being a little bit of a seductress with her the way she's casually lounging in the chair, and her voice. She's just being sexy, if you will. And Vince is just, oh my God. And it's unfortunate because we know allegedly, what happened between Vince and Rita Marie. So Rita Marie is the first lady referee in the World Wrestling Federation, as they continue to say over and over again, the first lady referee. And rumor has it that Vince had his way forcibly with her in the back of a limo, which resulted in a later lawsuit and a settlement. So is that hush money? Is that Vince just saying, I'll pay her, go away? Or, did he do it? Rita Marie says he did. And that's just awful. That's unfortunate. And of course, we don't know the details. But anyway, Rita Marie is there being sexy, and Vince is drooling. And Rita Marie talks about her dead brother always wanting to be a professional wrestler. And he'd watch the matches on TV, and we'd go to the matches. And Rita Marie wants to honor her dead brother, so she went and trained to be a referee. And she actually says that she trained under an old-timey wrestler named Tony Altimore. So she says, yes, I was trained by Tony Altimore. And Vince makes some comment about training under Tony Altimore. Now, in the wrestling commentary shtick, you hear some of those little insinuations, and Vince absolutely meant what you think he meant by saying, "Well, I could imagine it would be kind of difficult training under Tony Altimore." And he's just loving that, and Lord Alfred is, but it's trust me. That's exactly what Vince. It's a boys' club, and they're making jokes. And there's jokes. Gorilla Monsoon makes a ton of jokes on commentary about wrestlers, being involved in same-sex relationships. He makes some references about Steve Lombardi and Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson. And it's just, it's what it is. It's 1985. It's what it is. Right. So then they put the kids to bed, I guess. They go to MSG, and they show Rita Marie's debut match, and Howard Finkel is just having a great time announcing her as the first lady referee in the WWF. And she's announced, the crowd is completely carefree. They don't care, and she gives a little wave to the crowd, and then proceeds to referee a match between Moondog Spot and Blackjack Mulligan that we've already reviewed on the show. All right, moving on. Next up, I think the person that's been involved in the two most controversial TNT moments is Dr. D. David Schultz. He's been involved in both of them. In fact, so controversial that it was not included. The episode was not included in the 24/7 for the Peacock Network. Doesn't have the first episode that Dr. D was on TNT, where they go to his home and his family, and he's just an abusive, spousal beating, child beating, horrible person. But no, he's involved in the next most controversial TNT segment, where we get such a glimpse of Mr. McMahon. Not Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon. Dr. D is the guest. Look, he's a scary guy. Dr. D is scary. He seems like a guy that would just smack you around after a few Bud Lights and, throw you in the back of his pickup truck and smack you around. I don't know. He just seems scary. And he comes out, and you just can't, the look on his face, he doesn't crack. There's no kind of smile. There's no nothing. And him and Vince are already getting into it, because Vince McMahon does not like Dr. D. David Schultz. Now, in fact, Vince McMahon says, I think that you are one of the most arrogant people I've ever met in my life. And that's already going to start the tension between the two of them. And Vince talks about how he slapped John Stossel. So Dr. D was not fired for slapping John Stossel. This happened months ago. From what I've read, Dr. D was fired for attacking Mr. T. And I don't know about that either. Because I'll tell you what, I don't think Mr. T was a pushover. I think Mr. T did some Golden Glove stuff or some Tough Man Contest stuff, didn't he? I think Mr. T was an okay tough guy. I don't think he would just let Dr. D slap him around. I don't know, right? So, I don't know. Was he... And I'm sure there's some shoot interviews with Dr. D where he, of course, builds himself up and says how much he beat up Mr. T and was fired for that. I don't know. But he wasn't fired for slapping John Stossel. You know, that might have been in his permanent record and might have contributed to his, you know, his termination. But that wasn't the reason. So Vince, he and Vince are getting at it a little bit, and Dr. D says, you know, Vince, you don't like me, do you? And Vince says, well, I'll tell you, you're not one of my favorite people. And then Dr. D has a gun in his vest, and he pulls out a handgun. And he's like, wow, you know, and Vince is like, oh, all right, well, I guess we'll go to a break. And when we come back, we're going to look at more of Dr. D's gun collection. So when they come back, they are at Dr. D's house on the set of TNT, and they're in his gun collection room. And a gun collection room is like 2 guns on the wall and then a gun cabinet with like 3 or 4 guns in there. And Dr. D, you know, Lord Alfred is terrified. He doesn't want anything to do with it. Oh, you know, you want to hold this one, Lord Alfred? Oh, no, I don't like, I don't want to, no. So he won't go anywhere near the guns. And Vince, so Dr. D will pull out one of them and he'll say what it is. And I could shoot something off of something from something feet away. He's bragging about his marksmanship skills. And every time he pulls the gun, he purposely like brushes it by McMahon. And McMahon's getting more and more frustrated. And at one point, McMahon snaps and goes, please, I'm asking you, keep that thing away from me. And he's getting upset. And him getting upset is upsetting Dr. D. And so Dr. D keeps assuring him, you know, none of the guns are loaded. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional. None of the guns are loaded. And so to prove that, he takes a shotgun and he says, look, I'll tell you, none of them's loaded. Boom. And he shoots the shotgun. And it's, you know, it's rigged. It's obviously not. They didn't shoot a shotgun indoors. And Vince goes absolutely bananas. And I quote, "You stupid idiot! What is wrong with you? You stupid idiot!" And he goes nuts on Schultz. Now, Schultz is not going to take this kindly. So Schultz calmly walks to the wall and grabs another gun off the wall and starts pointing it at McMahon and Alfred, going, I don't like to be hollered at. I don't like to be hollered at. And immediately Vince goes, all right, everything's cool. And they walk off the set. And then they go to commercial. And I'm like, this is fantastic. This is so bad and so good. And McMahon is so over the top. You stupid idiot. I couldn't believe it. It was so good. And finally, so after all that, after the near murder, we're back on the set, and all Vince, you know, that was Dr. D. I can assure you he will never be on this show again. You know, and I'm watching it through 2023 eyes. And I would have expected in 2023 Vince to come on and talk about gun safety and talk about, you know, and they just blew it off. And I don't know. Are those better times? Probably. I don't know. I don't get into stuff like that. But anyway, we close out with, we go from Dr. D to Salvatore Bellomo, who since like episode 2 of TNT ever, he's been working on a ship, a model ship, that he calls the World Wrestling Federation. And it's a model ship, and the sails are all made out of, I assume, magazine photos that are maybe laminated or something and shaped into a sail. And they're old because they've got some old wrestlers. They got the Samoans and they got Sergeant Slaughter, and they've got old stuff. So he's been working on it forever. And now he comes back to the show to say that it's finished, and it's pretty cool because it's on the coffee table and it's in a wrestling ring. He made a wrestling ring, and then the ship sits in the ring and then spins around. It's very nice if you're into model ships. But it triggered my LJNs on the coffee table image because it's in a ring, and so there's a ring on the coffee, and pretty soon there's LJNs on the coffee table. So, it's never a good interview with Salvatore Bellomo because he's got, the broken English. And so they go to Salvatore Bellomo versus Johnny Rodz in Madison Square Garden. Again, this is from '84. And Salvatore gets the win in New York. And of course he gets the win in New York because it's olden time WWF. If it was new time WWF, they don't let you win in your hometown. They don't let you win with your mother in hospice in your hometown. They don't let you win in your hometown. They trash you in your hometown. But back then, the New York City Italian crowd that loved Bruno also loves Salvatore Bellomo, and he gets the win over Johnny Rodz, which you wouldn't think would happen. But more importantly, Mr. and Mrs. Bellomo are in the audience. And first of all, they're not even in the front row. They're I think they're on the floor, but they're 6 rows back. They couldn't even get them front row seats, which is crazy, right? They can't even get them front row seats. But they flash to Mr. and Mrs. Bellomo, and they are two of the most Italian people in the world. They are Italian people from the old-time photographs of Italian people in the 1800s, in the 1900s. That's what they just, where they don't smile. You don't smile in those photographs. You just stare at the camera angrily. The mom and they're both the perfect characters from you're seeing it here. And the mom is no over the top reactions, but she's got her hand to her mouth, and the father goes like this. That's Papa Bellomo's reaction. So that's how it ends. That's how TNT ends. March 1st, 1985. The build to WrestleMania continues. We have to review a Championship Wrestling from March 2nd. We have to review an All-Star Wrestling from March 2nd. And I'm not going to bother reviewing All-American Wrestling because it is just a total recap show. It really is. So I'm not even going to waste your time. It's a lot of work for me to do this. I'm not going to bother recapping All-American. I don't have it for much of 85 anyway. I've only got maybe 7 or 8 episodes, and I don't have any in 86. So don't worry about All-American Wrestling. Total recap show. If I watch it and something good happens, I'll let you know. But we got a Championship Wrestling and an All-Star Wrestling, and then another TNT, and then a house show. Not from Madison Square Garden, but I think from, I think it's Nassau. I think it's a weird New Jersey house show. Maybe. But that's what's coming up on Wrestling with the Past. That is all. Thanks for watching. Good night now.